Hi, and welcome to today's edition of Kick Butt Girls. Today I am talking about the women of Kristin Cashore's novels. Graceling, Fire, and Bitterblue are her three companion novels. They have overlapping characters and settings, but a different main character for each story, and they take place in different time periods. So the first book of Cashore's that I read was Fire, which is technically the second book in the series. And the basic setup is that in this fantasy world, there exist monsters. And what these monsters are these incredibly beautiful creatures. Animals that are like normal animals, only just extra beautiful, but also fiercely predatory. And it also sometimes happens to humans. And it just so happens that Fire and her father are these monsters. They're impossibly attractive to everyone around them. They have some slight mental powers. They can influence people psychically. What was so interesting to me about Fire is she had all of these incredible powers and this sort of infinite potential to influence the world around her, and she wanted nothing to do with it. Her father had been a very, very negative force in the kingdom, had influenced the king, had taken advantage of what he had been given to really just do gross things, basically, is what I'm saying. and Fire, having learned from that, decided she wanted to go in the opposite direction. And it was really interesting seeing her struggle with having so much innate power and how many negative things it brought into her life. People hated her simply for existing. People loved her simply for existing, which was almost as bad. And so that to me was really interesting. Sarah Graceling is Katsa. And first of all, can we just say there are a lot of strong female characters with the cat part of their name? I'm not sure why, but I do think that it's because the K sound is kind of a strong sound anyway. Kiersten. Just kidding. And so Katsa lives in a world where people have graces. Only certain people, and the graces come in all sorts of varieties. Maybe you can sniff someone and find out exactly what food will be the exact right food for them at that moment. They're kind of strange. But Katsa's grace, she thinks, is killing people. And she has an uncle for a king who is not a nice person. And he's taken advantage of her and forced her to use her grace to do really horrible things on his behalf. And it's not until she meets Poe, a man with a grace of his own that I won't talk about, that she realizes that maybe her grace is something much more complicated and much more intimate and very much her own grace, not something that can be manipulated or used by others. And it's seeing her come to terms with what she can do with who she is that really is the core of that novel and makes it so fascinating. But my favorite of the three is Bitterblue, because Bitterblue features a main character who is not magically powerful. She's not incredibly beautiful. She's not gifted with being able to survive any situation. She is actually the daughter of pretty much the worst man in fiction, King Lek. He's essentially a sociopath who tormented and destroyed an entire kingdom because he could. And he had this horrible grace and was able to use it to manipulate and destroy his kingdom. And so she's left trying to pick up the pieces and trying to put back together a kingdom that has been through so much incredibly horrible trauma that it might not ever recover. And I loved Bitterblue because she is surrounded by these extraordinary people with graces and with gifts, and she has to rely on herself in order to figure things out, and she has to decide whether or not she is the right person to rule this kingdom and put it back together, because she might not be. And I loved that. I loved that in comparison with Katsa and Fire, we had a very normal girl who was doing the best with what she had been given, which was frankly a really horrible situation. So Kristin Cashore, I love her characters, I love her stories, definitely worth checking out. If you don't like fantasy, give them a try anyway. They might convert you.